Okay, so let's talk about the components that you'll need to finish this knife. They're pretty simple. You're going to need some Gorilla Glue. A small bottle will do fine. A couple different types of sanding implements, either straight sanding belts or sanding pads that you can buy at any hardware store. A couple clamps to hold your handles in place. A file to knock your pins down even with the scales once you're done with your glue up. Some type of a diamond stone or diamond rod would be preferable that you could knock that wire edge off with to get to your final edge. And then some type of oil as a sealant. Walnut oil will work just fine. Tone oil works okay as well. Something that you can seal that wood with when you're finished. All right, when we ship these blades, we put an olive oil coating on them to keep them from rusting. And you're going to want to get rid of that so that your glue will stick to the metal. One of the easiest ways to do that is just to spray it down with some Windex and then dry it off really good with the rag. You can tape your blade up if you're worried about getting yourself cut on your blade while you're working on the knife. You can tape it up with some type of a blue masking tape or something like a frog tape. Now once you get this clean, you're going to want to go to the next step. What we want to do now is we want to take some kind of a sanding pad or some fine sandpaper, and we want to lightly sand the area here where we're going to attach our scales, and that will just help the glue adhere to the metal better. You don't really need to go past this small ricasso unless you're trying to make a satin finish on your blade anyway. Then it doesn't matter how far you sand it up. It doesn't hurt to clean that off with the rag either, just to get any dust off of it. Then we're going to do the same thing on the inside of our handle scales. And again, we're just trying to rough this area up so that the glue will adhere to it better. Okay, the next thing we want to do is we want to check our handle fit up and our material fit up before we add glue. I take these brass pins and I clean them off by sanding them as well, just roll it around with a sanding block, and all that's going to do is clean off some of the corrosion. Again, it's just going to give you a better glue up in the end. It's not really a big deal. Once you get that done, you're going to want to take your pins, and you've got a tapered end on these pins. You want that tapered end to go down into the hole, and you might have to turn it over and press it so it comes up a little bit, just like that. And once you get that, then you can lay your knife over the top of those two pins to make sure everything lines up. And just make sure that all your holes line up correctly. You don't necessarily have to push the scale completely on there, but just make sure that all your holes line up right before you attempt to glue it up. And once you've got that figured out, then you can start to glue it. But what you might have to do with this, because these holes are tight so you get good fit up, you might end up having to pull, especially this larger pin, out with a pair of pliers. Any pair of pliers will do. Just twist it out just like that. And now you're ready to start your glue up process. Okay, so one thing that you might find with these scales is these are made on a CNC machine. And your 1/4 inch hole may be a little bit small at times because of bit wear. Your 1/8 inch hole you won't have to worry about too much because you've just got a straight pin there. But this hollow pin can be tight going in if there was any bit wear during the manufacturing of that scale. And if you're not comfortable with it when you push it in, and it's really, really hard to get it in there, and you almost have to force it in with a hammer, and when you pull it out, you can't get it out fairly easily with just a pair of pliers, then what you may want to do is you may want to take a 1/4 inch drill bit and just run it through the hole, because that's a 1/4 inch pin. So you can just take a 1/4 inch drill bit, run it through the hole real quick, and you should be fine once you've done that. So at this point, we're ready to glue our handles up and get it clamped. Remember that Gorilla Glue expands quite a bit. So you really want a very thin layer on here. And you really just need something about the size of that, like a small M&M size is all you really need. And you need to spread it really, really well. I just spread it with my fingers. And you want just a really thin coat on these handles. And I also put a thin coat on the knife itself. Don't hardly put any on the pins. You can almost use the residue off your fingers on these pins. Push it through. Same thing on this side. Just put a very thin coat on the handle, or on the handle of the knife as well, here on the metal. Drop it down over the top. Same thing on this side. Once your handle is seated and you've got it tight, now you're going to want to clamp it up, and that's where these two small clamps come in. And I usually put one just behind each pin, just like that. And you're going to want to give this about 4 hours to set up before you do anything else. Okay, so we've given it 3 to 4 hours here, and now we can remove these clamps and start to work on our knife. Now, so a couple things we want to do. We can take another knife and trim any excess glue that swelled up and bled out from around the scales. We can take that off very easily with just a sharp knife. We also want to take these pins and grind them down even to the wood before we start. Now, there's a couple things we could also do to protect this knife while we're working on it, and that is we could cover this blade with just a strip of tape, or we could put a cardboard sleeve over the top of it. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to put a cardboard sleeve over it so that I can actually clamp it into a vise when I'm sanding down my handle. Alright, so I just cut a piece of scrap cardboard here, and I'm just going to basically fold it up around the blade just like this. And it doesn't have to be perfect by any means. And then I'm just going to take some blue tape here and tape it up over the top of that, just like this, with a couple strips just to hold it while I'm working on the blade. This is just going to keep me from A, cutting my hand, or B, damaging the blade if I've got it clamped into a vise to sand it off. And then I can just slide that over like a temporary sheath like this. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my knife, and a pocket knife will do fine for this, and I'm just going to scrape any excess glue off of the back of here real quick. That just means less sanding I have to do in the end. Now I want to look at these brass pins and get them dialed in. So I'm going to hold this thing, and I can put this in a vise to do this, or I can just do it on the table like this and just grind these down with a file. Until they're even with my handle on both sides. Now I'll just clamp this into a vise and start working on my handle profile with different types of sanding media. And I like to take this strips of this sanding belt because they work really well, and you can just kind of go around like this. It gives you a nice round look to everything and a nice even finish. So I like to start with that on both sides. And this paper contours really well to the handle, where you've got turns on the handle going up right there. That works really, really well. So now anything you do from here to finish this handle, as far as thickness goes, as far as any contouring of this handle goes, that's all really up to you now. And it's part of the personalization process to make this handle fit well to your hand. All right, once you've got that handle sanded down to where you want it, you can take some type of oil, and I prefer walnut oil for most of my stuff, and just get yourself a really good 2, 3, 4 coats of oil all over this handle. Oil it up, let it soak in, and oil it again until it quits taking the oil, basically. Once you've got it to the point where it's not taking oil anymore, then you've got enough oil on it. And once I'm happy with the oil and the handle, and I've got everything to the point now where I want to put a final sharpening on this blade. Again, it's going to come fairly sharp. It's going to come with the second grind all the way down to a wire edge. So you should be able to come in with just a diamond rod of some kind and just go right over the edge there and knock that wire edge off. And you should be real sharp at that point. And it shouldn't take any very heavy strokes to get there. And if you want to hone it down a little bit more, you could put it on a water stone or whatever the case may be, whatever your preferred method of sharpening is. I'm Dave Canterbury with Self Reliance Outfitters in the Pathfinder School. Thank you very much.